Hello guys and welcome back to my weekly Players View State of the Division. Um, Last week I didn't make one of these videos. I was really busy and there was a new patch coming out and I was playing a lot of that content. I will try to obviously do this every single week, so back on track. The patch 1.2 dropped last week and with it a lot of new things. Basically, there's some big changes that were made to the Dark Zone with the level 200 plus bracket. That included much harder mobs, which right now has changed the Dark Zone drastically, which I will get into in a moment. We also had a new incursion, Clear Sky, which came out. Clear Sky is only now available in hard mode. Challenge mode's going to be releasing, I believe, this week, so probably the next day or two. And basically, big loot changes. those are the major things I should say that came out of that patch. So, talking about loot is what I'm going to jump into first. They really wanted to be, and to use the developers' words, generous with the loot. And in that aspect, there was new loot tables that were released, and much better loot now falls out of things like incursions. Now, obviously, will drop guaranteed 240 loot if done on challenge mode. 214 obviously is what you're still going to get from hard mode. If you're in the Dark Zone and you are farming in the 200 plus gear score bracket and you are farming in DZ 5 and 6, you get guaranteed 240 and 204 drops from bosses and the crates that drop out of the sky, basically. Those also will give you guaranteed 204 and 240 items. Now, there's an exception to this, and that is the boxes or the chests that you unlock with a key. Those will still give you the same old worthless crap that they always gave you. I would really like to see that changed. And as I've said before, with loot, I could walk into the Dark Zone, there could be 200, 240 sitting there, and I literally could not find a single thing that would help me out. It's possible. The RNG in this game is very brutal, and I think that while the loot changes are a step in the right direction, it's definitely a step in the right direction. It's a big step in the right direction. Everything you do now gives you better loot. Actually, even they've added PvE content with the Search and Destroy, which, no, it's not Search and Destroy missions like you would have PvP in, say, Call of Duty or something. But basically, you go out and you kill these targets out in the PvE area of the world, and then you get credits to basically turn in to the base of operations that will then let you kill bosses that can drop good loot. Those bosses, though, are only farmable once a week. So, really doing the incursion on challenge mode, if you're just into PvE, is going to be the best way for you to get loot. And it may actually even end up being the best way to get loot, period, depending on how easy it is to farm the new incursion Clear Sky once, once challenge mode for that actually drops. So, that being said, back to the Dark Zone, talking about that for just a moment here, is in that bracket, we do have a lot better drops. That being said, I still would like to see more. I think that we could still increase the drop rate, and by doing that, it's still going to be a long time for people to actually get min-maxed, just because of the way RNG is in the game. RNG in this game is incredibly brutal. It is very difficult. It's very hard. The difference between a 214 piece of gear and a 240 piece of gear is only about 25% on the max level that it can go, someone was saying. And so something can roll actually much lower on a 240 gear than maybe a really high rolled piece of 214. And it can just take, because of that, it can just take a long time. I really think that they should allow you to reforge or recalibrate as many stats as you want on an item, just so you can keep on trying to get higher and to unlock those with, say, Phoenix credits and things like that, just to kind of push the min-maxing a little bit easier on people. It's still going to take time, but right now it's really within the realm of impossibility at some point. Just because of how drops fall. And just the way things roll. You can only re-roll one thing, so you need to basically get 5 or 6 stats on an item and have them roll exactly the way you want them to, and then there's maybe one stat you can kind of flux and re-roll and try and get what you want. It's incredibly brutal, and I would really like to see that changed a little bit. I mean, I still think you should play the game, you should grind for stuff, but when you're sitting there, and in my personal experience, and even some of my other friends' personal experience that are playing alongside with me for hours and hours and hours a day, and it takes them. I mean, there's one person that's still waiting for a decent holster drop, and we've been waiting all week. And we've been trading items back and forth as they drop. And literally no one in our party has gotten a decent one for him. I mean, that's pretty harsh. So, it's just, it's one of those things that really needs to be adjusted. Anyway, back on the PvE stuff, there's more of that. It's good because you get to go out and you get to see the world with the search and destroy missions. They're not terribly difficult. There was an exploit that could be farmed unlimited with those particular missions, and now that has been patched, so that's good. Now talk about the incursion, Clear Sky. Clear Sky is basically a it's a never-ending wave mission. So basically, you're not gonna we're gonna clear this wave and do this. It's not how that works. It's pretty much a never-ending horde that comes out after you, and that's fine. You just need to know how to aggro them and manage them in such a way that people can get stuff done while that horde's coming. So you basically will have a group of people managing the aggro for a certain portion of that, while someone else maybe in your party that doesn't have as much aggro will go and do some of the mechanics of that particular mission. So it's fun. I like it better definitely than Falcon Lost, where you had those boring waves and it was just terrible from that aspect. It's long, it's monotonous. It's just how it is. So definitely like it. I think they could have done more. I always think they can do more, I guess. But I think they could definitely do more to make it more interesting. I mean, you're talking about a surface air missile launcher, and at the very beginning you see it shoot down a plane, and that's about it. And you're just, I don't know, it just didn't feel incredibly intense, and not from an intense of a hard standpoint, but intense from a story standpoint. It didn't, captivate me story-wise, really. And I think there's a lot more they could have done with that. And I'm really hoping in the future you see that and you see a lot more of those type of mechanics. I mean, the mechanic really is there's a horde coming out and you blow a hole using the same mechanics you used in Falcon Lost from, okay, go pick up the bomb, blow a hole in this container, walk through it. And then in some of the other missions, you had to go and pick up, carry an item and bring it into like a generator and plug it in. We've done this in other missions. You have to do the same thing, just with waves of enemies coming at you. Operate a laptop, which we've all done throughout the game. There's no really new, interesting game mechanics or fun things to do in that. It's literally just it's a different matchup of the same game mechanics. And while I do like it better than Falcon Lost, we really need something that's original in the game, in this content, not just let's cut and paste different things that are already there and make that into an incursion. No, we want things that are actually going to be original, that are new, that are well thought out. And this isn't a bad update. It's not a terrible incursion, but I really think they could do a whole lot more, and I'm hoping that they do that in the future. So, I mean, that's what I have to say about the incursion. Moving back a little bit to the Dark Zone to talk about how that's changed the Dark Zone as far as the 240 gear bracket. The 240 gear bracket basically means if you have a gear score or possible gear score of 240, and it will only take your primary weapon into account when it's doing a calculated gear score. I'm not going to get into all that, but basically there's a back-end calculated gear score that may be actually, or possible gear score, potential gear score, that's a little bit different than the actual gear score of the gear you have on. It's to prevent players from exploiting and trying to get into lower brackets and different things like that. But it doesn't actually show up in the interface, and it's something that they know that they need to work on and be a little bit more clear about. And who knows how that will look in the future. That being said, if you're in that 200 gear score bracket, you're probably going to want to farm DZ 5 and 6 just because of the guaranteed higher loot drop out of there, which is great. It's awesome. It's amazing. I still would like to see more, and I definitely think the chests should drop higher loot than they do because they still drop like 162 and basically crap. That's all that they drop. Um, but with that, it also comes a lot harder mobs. So you're looking at level 34 mobs, and these mobs can be, well, they are, not can be, they are, they're flat out. They are extremely difficult. And someone as myself, there's people that have, I've heard rumor, I should say, of people with 600 plus toughness, which is the new combination of armor and health stat that kind of lets you see is this going to, and it's good. It's a good thing without having to drill down to see if something's going to make you more tough. It's going to make you more tanky. And I have about 430, well, close to about 440,000 toughness. There's people supposedly out there with like 600,000 toughness. That being said, those mobs still tear me apart like it's no tomorrow. I also have two pieces on of Final Measure, so I have plus 50% resistance to exotic damage, which I believe is like fire, explosives, things like that. I definitely notice the difference in explosives. Like in PvP, if someone tries to sticky bomb me, it doesn't do anything. I mean, anything. I can see other players around me in my group that can literally get dropped in a single sticky bomb, and that same sticky bomb, when it hits me, won't even take away an eighth of my health. So it's definitely very interesting in that. But that all being said, when you meet up, especially in the Q building, which me and my group have now nicknamed the barbecue building, because of all the times you get freaking burned in that building. Welcome to Agent Barbecue Building. Um, it can be very difficult and very tough, and which is a good thing in and of itself. But then comes the other side. So what's the flip side of this? Well, the flip side of this is now that a lot of people, and I don't blame them, don't really want to go rogue. The rogue count has dropped drastically, and the reason for this is, for one, maybe people don't want to lose loot, but for me, I would love to go rogue all the time. I really would. And yesterday we did, and I cut the road successfully, and we had a lot of fun with that. We went manhunt successfully, and we had a lot of fun. But majority of the time we don't go rogue, and the reason why we don't go rogue is we can't fight people and the new mobs at the same time. It's just the new mobs themselves can wipe us at times if we're not completely on our toes. And to have players trying to shoot us in the back while we're facing mobs, or to have mobs shoot us in the back while we're facing players, which happens a lot if you're going to try and go rogue, is just you can't handle it. There's not enough armor, there's not enough anything to handle that kind of firepower coming at you. And more often than not, DZ 5 and 6 is going to be pretty full of mobs. Period. The respawn rate's really good for farming out the, for farming out the bosses. So I'm happy for that. But because these mobs are so difficult, you find people going rogue significantly less. I mean, crazily less. Now people just go rogue in, zones 1 and 2, just because the mobs aren't as bad, and you just go rogue to go rogue. You don't go rogue for good gear. I have run into, like I said myself, we went rogue in DZ 5 and 6 and got some loot. I've had other groups do that to us, but it's very uncommon. Um, I can go entire days without anyone going rogue instead of, maybe an hour or two, as it was before. So it's really changed the dynamic of the Dark Zone into a place where people don't go rogue near as much, even slightly as much. People probably go rogue maybe 5% as much as they used to. I don't know what the actual statistic is. I'm sure the devs have that statistic. But people just don't go rogue anymore. They really don't. Like I said, there's exceptions to that, and I'm not going to say, you will never see a rogue in DZ 5 and 6. I mean, I've gone rogue in DZ 5 and 6. I've seen other people go rogue in DZ 5 and 6. It just isn't as common. And that's because the mobs are so difficult, and because people have stuff they don't want to lose, so they don't risk going rogue. Normally, when we went rogue, we wouldn't, and I said normally, we wouldn't have anything on our backs. We'd be like, we have nothing to lose. We see people with loot in front of us. We know that it's good loot because they got it out of DZ 5 and 6, and so we're going to try and kill them and take it. If they kill us, we don't have loot in our backs to lose. So, that's just how it is. So I feel kind of, I don't know. I think on one hand, I like the difficulty of the new mobs. I like that it's now a cover-based shooter again. You've got to use the cover. You can't just run, freaking stand up to them and just blaze away, and that feels good. But at the same time, it feels really bad from a PvP standpoint, where you just can't effectively go rogue, and not because of the other players. When you're facing just other players, it's a nice. Most of the time, it's a good hard fought battle. Sometimes it's not, but it feels like PvP. But when you start adding in the other mobs to that scenario, which 99% of the time is what's going to happen, whether or not you can get away is going to be based on to who has their super to run through the mobs, not who's better at PvP. That doesn't feel good. So I'm not sure exactly how you're going to balance that out, how you could balance that out. But that's just kind of where we're at right now. So the good, the bad. Overall, I do feel that the patch was a step in the right direction in so many ways, and I'm glad that they're taking those steps. With the patch, there are certain bugs. It's been fixed on. There's an interface bug basically that would do dual interfaces, made it kind of a real big pain to get into your map, to get into your interface, to do things. And a lot of this has been fixed on the PC and PlayStation, and I believe Xbox is coming out a little bit later this week, so maybe the next day or two. And we should see that fixed. In all honesty, a bug like that I don't think should have gotten through testing. I don't know how it could have. And I will say this again, I am extremely disappointed for all the steps they made in the right direction, for everything that they've done. It's not a game-breaking thing per se, but just it does not feel like they do quality updates. When you release an update, there needs to be certain things that just don't happen. And a dual interface bug, which is extremely easy, like 100% of the time, it'll happen. It's so easy to replicate. And basically the way this works is if you join someone else's game and you guys aren't sitting in the exact same safe house or checkpoint or whatever, and you get a little loading screen when you join their game, instead of just a transfer, you get a dual interface. And the more times you do this without relogging, the more interfaces it gets. And it creates audio bugs, visual bugs, all kinds of things that just do not work right in the game, or look right, I should say, in the game, when this happens. So, and it's so easy to replicate. It's 100% guaranteed this happens every single time. How in the world did that get through QA? I mean, really. How in the world did that get through their testing? To me, that is mind-boggling that could get through their testing of that patch. Like, what in the world? They need to take a serious look at how they're testing the game, what they're doing. Maybe they don't have enough testers. I don't know. But whatever is going on there, that's not effective. And to have such glaring issues that are 100%, because every time I do it, it happens to me. I join up a party. Most of us end up logging out and logging back in just to get rid of this bug, because it happens every single time. How in the world does that get through testing? And that's just the things we know. Like, how many other things are getting through testing? When you have bugs where things aren't being applied right, you have bugs where, this is supposed to, protect you, and it does the opposite. It causes you to get more damage, and all these other things. It's just craziness that's going on in this game. I don't know if their tools aren't correct, if their engines aren't, because the engine was built in-house, if that needs a major overhaul or what. I don't know, but something has got to give, because this is ridiculous. That being said, players have found workarounds. We know how to get around it and do things we need to do, but I don't understand how that gets through QA. It's so bad. It's so bad. It's so disappointing. And I'm sure it's disappointing for them, but, changes have to be made on that front. Well, that's about it for today. All my rantings and ravings and talking about my opinion of the game. I'm still enjoying the game, still having a lot of fun. I've actually started playing some Overwatch on the side just to kind of fill some time every once in a while. But yeah, I mean, Division's still a good game. It's still a lot of fun. There's things that need to be addressed like that. And the RNG in the game is brutal. Bugs that should never get through QA are getting through QA still, and that's just kind of how it is. And the Dark Zone dynamic has changed a lot. That's the summary of that. So anyway, I should be back next week, and I'll see you guys then. As always, thanks for listening. I know this one's been a little bit longer, so especially thanks for listening. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. Thank you.